All right, so thanks to everybody for being here for this first workshop to get us ready for the 2021-2022 Image of Research competition at Illinois State University. The competition is open. We're accepting submissions. The deadline is not until November 12th, so there's still plenty of time to think about an image, to capture it or create it, and to then submit it online. I'm just going to open this workshop with a couple of words about the history of the competition and a little bit about how it works. So this competition is actually held internationally at numerous campuses. So both in the United States and Canada, in Australia, and various places in the world. This competition has been held for many years. It's been open for about 3 years at Illinois State University. And the very first year we started this, it's a collaboration between the Office of Student Research, which is a fairly new office on Illinois State's campus, the graduate school, the university libraries, and university galleries. And this competition, it was really an idea we had that we wanted to bring to this campus to kind of engage students. We know that we have a lot of students doing really interesting research. Often it has a visual or could have a visual component to it. And we wanted students to think creatively about their work and to submit images that kind of show us what they see. So you'll see our posters around campus on screens and on walls, and they say, show us what you see. Because we, like the image that you see on the screen right now, which is one of our winners from last year, some of our researchers see really beautiful and interesting things. And so it's a chance for students to submit, students undergrad or grad, to submit one static image that conveys their research. And along with that image, they submit a very short 150-word abstract that talks about how the image relates to their research. Their submission is online. Students give, of course, the images always remain in the possession of the student. So the creator has copyright, but you offer that copyright, you lend us that for, give us permission to post this on our Illinois State University Research and eData site. So we save it and then we show it here. And this year we will be able to have a pop-up exhibit at the gallery of, we're printing these and actually having an in-person exhibit. So we're super excited about that. The very first year we were going to do this, it was the spring of 2019. We were getting ready. I had everything ready. When the finalists had been selected, and we were all ready to go when the pandemic hit. You know, I had everything ready except for the cookies ordered and for our exhibit, and we were not able to hold the actual in-person exhibit. So, and of course, last year we weren't able to do that. So everything has been online until this year. This year, the finalists will be online, but in addition, we will have an exhibit at the galleries. These images will also travel to Milner Library to be displayed, to the University Research Symposium in the spring, and to various other places on campus. So it's an exciting year for us. So I want to introduce now, so this is the first of 3 workshops. This one is called What Makes a Research Image Compelling? And in order to talk about these, we have 2 guests. One is Jessica Benjamin, who is a painter and illustrator in Normal, Illinois. And she has her MFA from the New York Academy of Art. She has a BFA from Illinois State University. She teaches in our university in painting and drawing. Her work has been shown internationally and featured in the Southampton Art Museum in New York. So she's also a good friend, and I am an admirer of her amazing work. So welcome to Jessica. She's also been a judge for this competition before. So she has experience seeing lots of our research images. Our other guest I'm super excited to have is Holly Filzinger, and she's a second-year graduate student in the visual culture program at Illinois State. She's also the organizer of the 2021-2022 Experiencing Images, How the Visual Shapes Our World, which is a speaker series that we have at ISU, is sponsored by the Office of Research and Graduate Studies. And so as the organizer of that, she has put together a really interesting program that will engage many people from across campus in a dialogue about how, you know, these images shape our world. So with that, I want to just start. And what I thought we would do is look at a few of the images from the past year, some of our winning images, and talk about, you know, how, you know, various aspects of them. When we invite judges, the jurors are always off-campus jurors. Jessica was not teaching here, actually, and so there was no chance that one of her students would be submitting an image. And we ask them to rate or to rank or evaluate the images on the basis of three criteria. The first is visual impact. The second is originality, and the third is how the image connects to the student's research. And so one thing I can say is I have found is that the jurors that we have had in the past who have been artists themselves, they've been folks working in corporations who are photographers, they are gallery curators and people in art education. So we've had a variety of people who have evaluated these, and they often have differing opinions. What's interesting is that they tend to solidify around a few images as kind of favorites that seem to, the combination of imagery and of and the statement, of course, of research, that there tends to be an agreement about some of them. So I thought we'd just take a look at these, and maybe we could start. This is a photograph from Tristan Brown, a graduate student from last year who submitted this image for the competition. And right now for this workshop, we're not really dealing with that third aspect of the connection, but I'll just say briefly that Tristan's research is on race and performance in Brazil. And so that kind of gives you the overall context for this. But I thought maybe we'd start with Jessica, and maybe we could just say, you know, when somebody says, you know, what, you know, an impactful image or a compelling image, what makes an image impactful? And you could talk about that just generally or in relation to this image.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed the whole process. There were so many great images. So actually choosing a few from them, although there were some that really stood out from the crowd, but overall it was consistently very, very good. And one of the striking things when you're creating an image you want to think about is that immediate impact of what that image is going to do. Because there's so much with research can tend to be a little bit dry on the dry side. Some of it, and especially if you're trying to reach out to an audience that isn't familiar to the research, it's another doorway to kind of see the work in a different way. I just want, like, briefly, I wanted to say, because I say this to my students all the time, about the power of images. So there's been lots of studies that have been done that say that people look at images anywhere between 7 and 32 seconds. But in scientists that like do these studies, they can't really decide on the exact number of seconds. There was a study I just looked at recently, it was 2017, and they said people that go all the way to the Mona Lisa look for 15 seconds. So I'll often say to my students, well, what's the point then? Why make images if there's only, people look at them only for a short period of time? And then I have my students close their eyes and remember all of the images, all the impactful images they have in their life. And there's really a power to that, So these images, even though they're brief, they pack a punch. And I think this is a great example of that. You have the composition and the impact of the color, and it really matched when you read his thesis. It really enhanced that. It drew you in a way. And I think that overall, this was an incredible, incredible piece.
Holly, anything to add? You haven't had the benefit yet of looking at lots and lots of research images, but just wait, because you may get the invitation.
Yeah. No, I mean, echoing what Jessica just said, yeah, we live in such a media saturated world, and I think that we often think of ourselves as consumers. We're always on social media and we're always consuming all these images through news and on our phones all the time, but we are also active producers, and we navigate meanings through images. And what makes I love this image in particular, because as Jessica was saying, the composition overall really draws you in. There is a sense of narrative, and you're curious. And I think that's, especially when we're wanting to produce images that relate to our research, that's exciting. It can be daunting, but that's what we're really passionate about. And I think what's important too is also echoing what Jessica just said. Your audience might not be familiar with what your research is, and that's okay, because even if the image, you want that image to just draw you in, essentially, and pique curiosity, which is a hard thing to kind of do, but I would encourage everyone to think through, again, like Jessica said, the images that speak to you and what things draw you in, and how you might explore that. It might be in really out of the box kind of creative ways. So yeah, that's what I would add.
Yeah, and I think that's right. This piques your curiosity when you look at it, what's going on here. And in a way, it's easy to relate to, because, I mean, there's people in their mood, you don't know, is this a ritual? Is this it's a dance, but there's movement and that great color contrast. And so you're kind of curious about it. Not all research, as Jessica said, it has maybe can have this. I mean, this was a study about performance, so it has automatically a visual aspect. Going to a different image, this one's quite different. This was tied for first place. This is a quite different image, and this is from an art student and in painting, actually, as well as who was also using gaming technology. And so this is a digital image from a game environment. It's a still taken from a game environment. And in this case, the student was using, Lana was using her history and ethnicity as a Yakut indigenous person to talk about kind of dreamscapes. And so her research had to do with that. And so for this one, when we think about what makes it impactful, I mean, this is not like, this is difficult to relate to, unlike the last image. So any thoughts about this one?
This was one of the, do you mind if I jump in here? Just because I'm really familiar with this image. And I just recently revisited when we talking about these images, because the artist that made this considered everything. I mean, one of the striking things I remember when I saw this image for the first time was, first of all, its surreal nature. So at first you look and you think, what is that about? So there's all these questions that go into it. But then the overlying composition, one, you have the complementary colors. So she's thinking about that, like grabbing attention, like what are the ways that artists grab attention? Like color can be a big thing. She's using dramatic lighting, like everything has like a lot of drama. She really has a lot of punch here. And then the other aspects of it, that it was related to the gaming world and memory. So how we kind of grab hold of memories and construct memories. And I think this just illustrates that so well. And then I remember one of the third elements of this piece was that it was reflective of where she grew up, where there was I believe it was 24-hour, the sun shone for 24 hours. And so, and then you look at it again and, is it morning? Is it evening? That brilliant sun is shining, but it doesn't look like it's going down anytime soon. And I think overall, I mean, it's an incredibly successful piece, bringing all of those elements once again together.
Yeah, I love that. It's kind of inviting because it invites you into the middle of it. There's that, it's a cold landscape, and then there's that warm spot in the middle. So
Yeah.
that really
Yeah.
draws you into the middle of it.
Yeah.
Anything to add, Holly?
Yeah, I was really fortunate in being able to see a video of this work at the gallery. And so I'm a little bit familiar with seeing it in person, but it's fantastic to be able to just kind of focus on one still. And I love the still that she chose. I think, it's incredible too, you were just saying, the tones, the colors and how they draw you in, but also the contrast, in some spots it's very saturated and there's very high contrast on the outside, but that inner portion is very soft and welcoming and inviting. And what I'll say about this too is absolutely, you look at it and you wonder what's going on here, and it will evoke a lot of personal things for each person. And of course, this is an artist who is working visually, so her experience in creating visual images is much more she's had a lot of experience doing it, and it definitely shows. But what I love about this is it can be very personal, but it can still draw people in. It's not, you're looking at it and you're trying to figure it out because you're curious about it, you're trying to understand the meanings, but it's not an image that is confusing and all over the place. And I think that's something that is difficult. And in creating an image is you want there to be some clarity, but still, have this open to interpretation. Of course, that's where the abstract comes in to play. But yeah, I love this image because it really draws you and you wonder what is going on. And again, that it allows you as the viewer to engage with it through your own memories and your own ideas. And yeah.
So we've had two images that are, those were that was in the graduate competition, and one of them, this person is an artist, and so has that element of has that education behind it and that ability to work with this media. But we've had some really wonderful images that are not from artists, and the undergraduates are equally talented. And so this one, this image is from a biology student, and it's microscopy. And so it's really kind of a still image of kinds of hairs found on a fly, I believe. So this is like an image where they apply a kind of a filter to the light so that they can see the different kinds of hairs. This is my recollection. I don't have the abstract in front of me. And so with that, I don't know, Holly, I would think, we have all these images in our world every day, but this one is maybe quite different than other. Now I think that gaming image is very different as well. That's a very original image, but originality is also found, for example, in these images, which we don't even know for sure what it is, right? Although we see flies all the time, just not through this lens and not this close. How do you think, I would think it's difficult for students sometimes to think about coming up with an original image, given the ubiquity of styles of imagery today. What do you think makes this image here compelling or interesting?
Well, for me, if one of my students brought this in as a drawing, a painting, or even a digital image, and we talked about it formally, I would talk first just about the overall impact. Like, this is a very impactful image once again. And this artist also is using complementary colors, dramatic lighting, and to really add as much impact as possible. And I think that's some things to think about. When you say, how do you make images interesting? I always, always, always in our drawing 2 class now, but always I introduce the idea that our first idea is not always our best idea. It may be. So what I'll have our students do is they'll do little thumbnail sketches of their ideas. And I ask them in each thumbnail sketch to take a different perspective. So that could be from a different person's point of view, or it could be literally a different perspective. So you could go above the image, you can go below the image, you can go in tight, you can come up far. But I think that in the end, when you're trying to really push for something that's outside of the box, sometimes starting inside the box is totally fine, because then you can, it gives you opportunities to see it from other places. And I think that this piece really does that as well, because it's the fly, but you don't, until you read the text underneath it, you would never realize that's what it was. And that's what further emphasizes the draw to the image, is that surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that word, the surprise of it, because I think I remember this is the very first image I saw from the competition, and I immediately was drawn to it because it's just so visually stunning, and you're just with the incredible, vast black background that this is in, you're just immediately drawn to these incredible like teal aqua blues. And yeah, you don't really know what you're looking at first, but it's a fascinating image. And when it comes to the sciences, I think that there's this, always this long held idea that students that are not active artists are like, how do you come up with things? How do you represent your work visually? How can you? Where's the creativity? But these things are not separate at all. And there are absolutely such incredible and creative ways to go about expressing these ideas. And I've been really fascinated by data visualization in the past couple of years, and seeing how scientists and artists are working together. So there's a lot of different avenues to approach it. Absolutely. And I think that there's, again, there's a life to these images. And again, this one just draws you in. Like I said that about every single one, but they do it so successfully. You're intrigued. And I would never think it's a fly. But when I see it now, I'm like, of course it's a fly.
So we've had, of course, we get a lot of photographs. I think that is it's kind of a natural medium for many people as documenting their research process or documenting some aspects of it. We also get, and, as you've seen, so we've had a photograph, we've had this kind of microscope photograph, but that's had some alteration done to make the fly appear the way it does. And then, of course, the created image. We have a different, you mentioned data visualization, and the next one, who was, I think, a second place last year. Let me see if I can find this. I gotta grab hold. I've lost here we go. There we go. This one, very different kind of image, submitted from a physics student, kind of representing some, let me see here, some of the, kind of a structure. And, we've got these primary colors. It's just a very different image than the others that we've seen. And yet, of all the different images submitted, this one, was chosen by the jurors. Any thoughts about this?
Yeah, when I saw this image, I was immediately drawn to it, exactly as you say, for totally different reasons than the other two. So really finding the voice for the appropriate voice for your particular project is probably something that you could think about, like while you're doing your sketches and writing just like little blurbs about like some of the key elements. So for this particular project, clarity obviously was something that was really important. And I feel like this artist was really trying to express visually what this idea looked like if we could take a concept and put it on paper. that's where it would live. And so it feels very analytical, but at the same way, I mean, it can be extremes. It reads almost like a Modrian, like
Yes.
something from then. So it has that impact. It's like the initial impact. It also, you are immediately wondering, what is this about? And I think that's another thing. It's like having not just an image that illustrates like exactly like what you're saying, but also continues to ask the question so that people want to further investigate what the research project's about.
Yeah, this is, I also thought that this is just kind of, I mean, you're kind of used to seeing some of these images if you in your science classes, right?
Yeah.
But this one makes it dynamic, you can kind of see movement, you're curious, what is it? And this is, I think I had said it was from a physics student, but this is in molecular biology. And that's, I just remember from my own experience of studying, like nutrition or whatever, so you're kind of used to this, but this one is so dynamic. And so you're kind of curious, like, what is this research talking about?
Absolutely.
So it kind of takes it's a little bit, in some ways, a familiar image, but makes it very colorful, and you just wonder what are they talking about? So
yeah, that key of having a familiar image that they've kind of asked another question about, kind of twisted it a little bit. I think that's really interesting, and I totally agree with that. That's another really another reason that makes this, as Holly would say, like, we're drawn to this image as well, because of that aspect is kind of tweaking our expectations.
Yeah,
and it's very successful that way.
So we've got four completely different images, different kinds of images in this, and I suppose, but we've had also drawings from students. We've had also kind of works that are, it's photographs, but it's photographs that have been manipulated with, for instance, putting the researcher in the image so you can see them doing the work, usually kind of creating, so photoshopped images that have been worked. I'll give a plug right now for our third workshop in the series, which is going to be held at the beginning of, I'll go back to my screen so I can make sure, because we have 2 more workshops for everybody. If I go back here, is this all following? Can you follow me in this? Okay, great. Yeah. Make sure that it's here. So as we said, the connection between the image and the abstract is important, because part of being visually interesting and impactful is drawing it's the drama of it, is drawing the viewer in, but then needing to kind of explain very clearly what that is and why it relates to the research is important. And so we're going to have a workshop on abstracts and writing the abstracts. What's included in an abstract, what would make it, what are lay, being sure that your language is written for a lay audience. A lot of times I meet student researchers, I ask them what they're studying, they tell me I don't understand a word of it because it's in, it's a topic and they're not used to translating it for a general audience. So in that workshop, we'll talk about how to, and I'm asking students to bring a copy of an abstract or at least a draft with some ideas, and then we'll talk about how to create that 150 word, no space to waste there, impactful statement to go along with the image. And then on November 3rd, Sam Bruner, my graduate assistant, who's a graduate student in creative technologies and kind of a master of technology, she's going to use Photoshop to talk about how students might take those angles that Jessica mentioned. Like maybe you have an image and actually you can change a perspective based on cropping or shifting the image, changing the image, or maybe you can go back and think about retaking the image from a different angle to make it more impactful. So we'll have a workshop on that. So really using the technology and then, thinking about the end result, and also making sure that it meets the requirements, because we need a pretty large file. So when you read the competition details and the FAQs, be sure to look at that, because we need good quality images so that we can print them in a large scale. So if you all had any kind of advice to give students on just kind of thinking visually, or it's kind of, if they're, I don't know, just any general advice for a student who's thinking about competing in this competition.
Well, my advice would be to just go for it.
Yeah.
If they're thinking, if they're thinking, I think maybe because I personally have taught a number of classes, sometimes artists, sometimes non-artists. People are just mildly interested or think, maybe I wish I could do that, but I don't think I can. And it's amazing once you get started, how quickly the learning and how quickly you can manifest something. The other thing I would just suggest is to trust that it's not going to be your first idea that's going to probably be your best, and that it's going to keep continually getting better. And it sounds like you're going to have a big team around you to really help you develop those ideas. So I think it sounds exciting. I mean, I look forward to seeing this year's competitors.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Jessica. And Holly, any advice or thoughts for students who might have never done this before? A science student who thinks of themselves as maybe not an artist.
Sure. Yeah. I definitely think that when it comes to research, some of the most important things that you can do is sometimes just return to the questions that initially drew you in, because that passion behind why you're interested in it and the questions that drew you in are going to be what probably draws the viewer in. And so it's just, again, that exploration, that curiosity, and then how you show that and choose to show that through the image, in your expertise, in the abstract. But what's great is there are options. I think it's always a little bit intimidating at first because it's very conceptual. How do you create something visually? But what's great is that there are so many options potentially to explore. And echoing what Jessica said, you're never probably always going to go with the first idea that you have, and that's great. It's a little intimidating, but it's great. And it's a way to explore a new avenue potentially of the research. If you might not be someone who's worked visually in the past, or even if you are and you have, this competition, I think, really allows for students to really think about how they might present information. And you learn a lot about your own research, I think, potentially through engaging with these ideas. So it's intimidating, but it's exciting, and it's going to be great.
I couldn't agree more, Holly. That's great advice. Going back to the original question that drew you in, or what you think is most passionate about the research. And then I would also encourage students to start early, not wait to the 12th. But I tell my students that all in every in my classes and in grant writing workshops, and don't wait till the last minute. But also to just really send us your questions. studentresearch@illinoisstate.edu. We can answer your questions about this. If you'd like to come in and talk about your image, we're happy to do that, either an appointment with myself or with Sam Bruner, my GA, looking at the previous winners. So you can go and you can see the current winners here. These are all the finalists, and then we have the winners listed here. And just I'll open up again as to see a totally different Rocky. And here's another one, if you can see that. This is a very different image and really interesting. Rocky actually won 2 years in a row, did different, I think he got maybe second place for this one. But here, this is really about hookup culture during the time of COVID and the issue of masks. And so in this image, he took different things from a grinder site where people were negotiating mask wearing and encounters, and made a mask out of those. So you've got the creativity of So again, I think we have some of the elements that you all have talked about already with, you wonder what's going on, you recognize a mask, but it's a different mask, you wonder, so it draws you in, it asks the question, and then it clearly relates to his thesis research, so in communication. So again, a totally different kind of image. So I think that if students are wondering what kinds of images can, they might be able to submit, looking up and seeing the range that we have, and, paintings, it's all different kinds of images that have been selected as finalists. And then if you win prize money. So, and it's really it's a cash award, $200 for first place. The graduate students are judged separately from the undergraduate, so it's 2 separate competitions. $200 for first place, $150 for second place, and then we have, and there's also some honorable mentions, and then a People's Choice Award, which is really fun. And this year, the People's Choice will be at the in-person exhibit at University Galleries on February 3rd. You'll come in, for every visitor that day who sees the exhibit, they'll get a ticket, and they can vote for their favorite image in the undergraduate competition and in the graduate competition. And that night we'll announce all the winners. So all the finalists will be on display, and we'll announce the winners that night. And so we're really, excited about this year's competition. We have already here, I think, the other workshop set up, and an announcement. Here it is. February 3rd, 4 to 6 p.m. at University Galleries. And so with that, I think we've kind of covered it, unless you have anything to add or there's any questions. All right, that looks good. Thank you so much, Holly and Jessica, for giving for this great advice and for your perspective on it. It's been really wonderful.
Yeah, thank you so much. I can't wait to see this year's competitors, and just wish all of you good luck and have fun.
Thanks.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing what happens.